from the station working for you. This is WRTV News at 6, streaming now.
The recent COVID-19 surge doesn't seem to be slowing down. Another 24 dead and thousands more infected. Health experts are worried.
There are some people in our state who are making the wrong choice.
A COVID-19 data expert is weighing in on the state's rising cases and hospitalizations, why he calls the numbers frightening.
And so being first in the state for being bad, we're now 29th. It's still not good, but we're making progress in the right direction.
Connorsville leaders say they are working to get COVID-19 numbers under control. Just ahead, we explain what they need from residents to make that happen.
The state's 2021 legislative session begins tomorrow. We show you the demands teachers have amid the pandemic and the possible impact on schools. Good Monday evening and welcome into the news at 6 on WRTV. I'm Amanda Starantino.
And I'm Mark Mullins. First tonight, the COVID crisis still has a strong grip on Indiana. The State Department of Health confirms 5,218 additional cases of coronavirus. That is the lowest number of cases reported in a single day since Wednesday of last week. But keep in mind, Monday numbers are usually lower because of a lack of reporting over the weekend. A total of 256,744 Hoosiers have been diagnosed with COVID-19 since the pandemic began in March. The state also reports 26 additional deaths. In total so far, 4,686 Hoosiers have died with coronavirus.
The COVID-19 data expert calls Indiana's latest case and hospitalization numbers frightening. WRTV reporter Kara Kenny finds out what the increase in COVID-19 cases means and what can be done to address it.
My job really is to track diseases.
Dr. Brian Dixon is the director of public health informatics at the Regenstrief Institute in Indianapolis, which helps advise state health officials. For the past few days, Indiana has reported more than 6,000 cases a day of COVID-19.
And the numbers that we are seeing most recently on the state's dashboard and the Regenstrief dashboard are frightening. This increase, this trend in new cases really began back in late September and have just carried through till now. So we've seen no signs of decline over the last several weeks. And Indiana, along with other states in the Midwest and of course the US as a whole, is on what many are calling an exponential growth path, which means if we don't act, then we will continue to see numbers go even higher.
Dr. Dixon is also a professor with the IU Fairbanks School of Public Health. He says the increase in cases is not a result of increased testing.
The number of cases we're finding is outpacing the volume of increases of testing that we're doing. So that's where the positivity number comes into play. We're seeing positivity well over 10%, and we're seeing positivity increase about 1% every few days. And that means that there's a lot more cases out in the community, and there's a high level of community spread happening. And it's happening in almost every county of the state. So this tells us that the virus is just sort of running rampant through the population.
Dixon estimates in a room of 10 people, up to 2 of them are likely to have the virus or have already had it.
So if you're having a get-together of, say, 20 or 30 people at your house, then there's likely about half a dozen of them that have the virus. And so it's really important. We're really encouraging people to have smaller gatherings.
Hospitalizations are also at record levels, and some facilities are already hitting their breaking point. Dr. Dixon says state leaders need to consider restrictions that will make an impact on rising numbers, especially on activities involving eating, drinking, and not wearing masks.
I think our leaders should really think about some of these strategies, not to, close businesses. No one wants to see a business closed and shut down permanently, but really put some restrictions in place to help people make the right choice over this holiday season.
Working for you, Kara Kenny, WRTV.
Dr. Dixon says asymptomatic people play a role because many of them never get tested because they don't feel sick and they're not traced back to someone who tests positive. He says you can do your part by wearing a mask and social distancing when possible. The numbers show the virus is spreading when people gather together without wearing masks. And for the second straight week, promising news about a COVID-19 vaccine. Now, Moderna has announced its vaccine could be up to 94.5% effective against the coronavirus. Just last week, Pfizer said its vaccine could be up to 90% effective. Both companies say these results are based from an early analysis of their phase 3 trials. Moderna and Pfizer are not yet ready to roll out their respective vaccines. They must first ask the Food and Drug Administration for emergency use authorization, which would allow the vaccine to be distributed to higher risk groups first. That could happen sometime by the end of this month or possibly in December. The exact timeline is not clear yet.
One of the cities being hit hardest in the state with COVID-19 cases continues to struggle to get people to wear their masks and follow CDC guidelines. WRTV's Troy Washington talks with leaders in Connorsville and people who live there to see what it'll take to get their town out of the red when it comes to the number of cases.
You can go to our Walmart and no one's wearing masks, or, it's like, and I wear it because I feel like other people matter, and I wear it to protect other people.
Jema Sullivan follows Governor Holcomb's mask mandate. The problem is, she says, so many people in her hometown are choosing not to mask up, even though Connorsville is in one of the red counties with an overwhelming number of COVID-19 cases popping up every day.
Our numbers did go down. Our positivity rate went from 25 to 12.5%, according to Dr. White. I haven't seen the actual numbers yet. And instead of being first in the state for being bad, we're now 29th. Still not good, but we're making progress in the right direction.
Mayor Chad Frank says he's focusing his energy on educating those who live here.
We are constantly asking people, please wear your mask, follow all the CDC guidelines, not just mask wearing.
He admits this summer he released a statement that might have led people to believe the state mandate was a choice. Today he's clearing that up.
I was not trying to say, which I think got misinterpreted, don't wear your mask.
He says he was only saying Connorsville is a small town with limited resources to try to figure out how to enforce such a mandate.
It's beyond a choice because it's a governor-ordered mandate.
WRTV bumped into Russell Cate. He owns this business. He says he'd prefer customers to wear a mask, but he doesn't require it before shopping.
I don't make them wear it, but I tell them if they want to wear it, they can. So just to be on the safe side.
While other places make it mandatory, Sullivan says she doesn't think her town will really start to cut down on cases until everyone realizes what's on the line.
They're just going on about their business, and they don't, until it affects them, I think personally, they don't consider it any big deal. I personally know people that have lost people to COVID in our town, and it's sad that, it could have been prevented, just by wearing a mask.
Working for you in Connorsville, Troy Washington, WRTV.
Well, the mayor says he has been talking to the Superior Court judge to figure out how to enforce the mandate.
We are just one day away from Organization Day at the State House and the start of the 2021 legislative session. Today, teachers from across the state are working to send a strong message to lawmakers and expressing their concerns over things like working conditions and compensation. WRTV's Megan St-Torm has more on what teachers are looking for and the challenges one educator right here in Indianapolis says he's seeing due to the pandemic.
Teachers across the state say each school year presents its own set of challenges, but this year has been exceptionally hard, due largely in part to the pandemic and staffing shortages. And now they're calling on lawmakers to act. In-person, hybrid, and e-learning. Many teachers across the state have had to do it all this year, often working long hours and weekends to make it happen.
This particular school year, I feel like it's blurred way too many of the professional lines that we really can't ignore.
Jack Hesser is a science teacher at Harshman Middle School in Indianapolis.
We've doubled and tripled the workload given to our educators, and we've given our teachers this impossible choice between, work outside of school for free or fail our students.
His experience is not unique.
We are overworked, underpaid, underappreciated, questioned, and oftentimes blamed for things that are simply out of our control.
I've seen so many teachers trying to raise money on their own for cleaning supplies or additional class materials, so students don't have to share during a pandemic. But this is the last thing a classroom teacher should be having to worry about or should be responsible for.
Now they're asking lawmakers to keep the governor's promise of not reducing funding for public K-12 schools.
This pandemic has hit schools super hard, and we have to think about how schools are funded as we move forward in this budget session.
Members of the ISTA want to see things like a starting salary of at least $40,000 a year for teachers and restored bargaining rights on workload issues such as hours, prep time, and class size. Many of these are things they've been advocating for years and topics that were discussed last year during the Red for Ed demonstration. But some teachers say they're more important now than ever.
Every job is more stressful during a pandemic, but few jobs have involved quite as dramatic of a change as teaching.
Working for you, Megan Sanctorum, WRTV.
Developing tonight, the NCAA says it's in preliminary talks with state and city officials to host the entire 68-team men's basketball tournament in Indianapolis in the spring. Indianapolis was already slated to host the men's Final Four from April 3rd to the 5th in 2021. Now, Indy could potentially host every single game of the entire tournament in the metro area. The NCAA says it believes having a single geographic region to host the tournament could help them conduct the safest and healthiest March Madness during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is sort of like how the NBA finished its regular season and playoffs in Orlando.
We've had initial discussions with the state of Indiana, with the city of Indianapolis, to see if it's feasible to run the entirety of the championship in the Indianapolis metropolitan area. Given that the Final Four is scheduled to be in Indianapolis, where it's been on a regular basis, where the NCAA is headquartered, of course, and we've got really good working relationships and great support from the Hoosier State. We think that that may be our best option if we can work out all the important details around competition venues, practice sites, hotel arrangements, medical resources that are all very available here in Indianapolis. So that's our hope, but we still have a long way to go to finalize all that still.
It is unclear if fans would be allowed to attend any of the NCAA tournament games or exactly where all of those games would be played. Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb released this statement on the NCAA considering Indianapolis to host the entirety of March Madness. He says, quote, "This is a unique opportunity for our state to support one of the country's most beloved sporting events, and we will do all we can to support the NCAA's efforts moving forward. We know this change impacts others around the country, but we believe Indiana is uniquely positioned to host such a one-of-a-kind tournament and do it safely," end quote.
The sun is now setting on a gorgeous day in central Indiana. Temperatures got into the 50s. Chief Meteorologist Kevin Gregory joins us now. Kevin, what are you tracking tonight and into our Tuesday?
Well, we made it into the 50s today, and it wasn't quite as windy. It was still windy, Amanda, but remember yesterday, 50 to 60 mile-per-hour winds. Today it was generally 32, in some cases 40. Muncie and Kokomo had wind gusts above 40 miles per hour. As we go through the evening hours, the sun setting will diminish some of the gustiness to the winds. 52 in Bloomington. In northern Quebec, the big wind maker, the pressure difference between that area of low pressure and high pressure out in the central U.S. over Kansas, they're getting farther apart, so our wind will gradually calm down after a cold front goes through tonight. Notice the arrows change, start coming out of the northwest. That will drive in the colder temperatures for the next couple of days. We'll get to the weekend story. You'll see how temperatures will change as we get late week into next weekend. That's we're kind of on cruise control until then. I'll explain all that coming up here in just a bit.
An Indianapolis firefighter honored today after he died over the weekend following an emergency run to help others. Today, Matthew Bennett's longtime co-workers led a procession to Crown Hill Cemetery. Bennett had driven a fire truck to the scene of a possible building collapse Friday morning when he complained of chest pains. He was taken to the hospital for surgery but died Saturday morning. Bennett had 23 years experience as a firefighter and was assigned to the Indianapolis Fire Department Station 1 on West 10th Street. He leaves behind a wife, 3 children, and 3 grandchildren. Visitation for Matthew Bennett is Sunday, November 22nd from noon until 8 at Crown Hill Funeral Home, and it is open to the public.
Substance use-related emergencies have significantly increased during the pandemic. To address it, Indiana University is doing more to focus on addiction and breaking the stigma. IU School of Education has begun a master's track focusing on the science around addictions and treatments. Other IU campuses are also working on creating a certificate program. The school also has a training clinic to help students with substance use disorders in their recovery.
This is where students who identify in recovery can come. They can connect with others who have a shared experience and really talk about the college environment and how do you manage, again, a college environment that might not always be conducive to supporting your recovery, but really thinking about it from a very strengths-based report.
You can learn more about these programs and more resources to help with recovery on our website, WRTV.com.
Is IU a football school now? Well, they are, at least for the time being. The Hoosiers are getting set to face the Big Ten's best. Can Indiana continue its historic rise? We'll put their latest success into some perspective when the News at 6 continues.
From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 6, streaming now.
I know it's Monday, but since we're going to be dry Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, even Saturday likely, let's talk about the weekend for a second and when we will begin to see a change. And I don't think that happens until next Sunday. That's when our chance for rain will return. Prior to that, rain is unlikely. There'll be a cold front sometime Sunday afternoon or Sunday night. The timing this far out gets to be a little difficult, but that will transition us back to temperatures that will be well below average. But before that happens, temperatures will rise later in the week. Tonight, it's about the cold front that sits to our north. Will come through dry. I think we'll see some clouds, maybe a sprinkle in northeast Indiana. Biggest change will be the colder temperatures for both Tuesday and Wednesday, where highs will stay in the 40s. As we get to Thursday, then we'll see things really start to warm back up, although briefly, but relatively a nice stretch there of about 3 days in the 60s. Next 5 days, as I drove that point home, dry. Strong winds will arrive Thursday, and those will be warmer winds, and that will push our temperatures into the low 60s. It's 43 in Kokomo now. You had stronger winds, Kokomo and Muncie. As you went south into the southern portion of the state, the wind speed's not quite as strong as we're starting to see that pressure gradient, the pressure difference relax. Temperatures are destined for the lower 30s overnight. Picking up the storyline tomorrow morning. 7 a.m. wind out of the northwest, a cold northwest wind. Definitely wear the heavier coat. We'll have sunshine that always mutes the colder temperatures, but you'll want to kind of battle the wind. The wind does relax by the evening hours. 40 degrees at noon tomorrow, 40 for the optimistic high. I think areas north of Indy, probably just shy of that. To the south, you should climb into the mid 40s, couple degrees warmer, and the wind calms down in the evening hours. As you look from Wednesday to Thursday, that's pretty dramatic change. It will come with the windy conditions. Once we get into the low 60s Thursday, we'll stay there through Saturday. Right now I've got Saturday dry. If something changes, may include a shower late on Saturday, more likely Saturday night. Then temperatures a little cooler Sunday, more clouds, that better chance for rain, especially late in the day. That opens the door to much colder weather early next week. But we seem in these 7-day forecasts as Mark to at least find a stretch of some mild temperatures, and it's happened once again.
There we are. There it is. I see it. Thanks, Kevin. The IU football team has reached its highest ranking in 53 years. Now the number 9 team in the country. They'll go for maybe their biggest win ever on Saturday when they travel to Ohio State. Brad Brown has more on the Hoosiers continuing their historic rise.
Just when you might think the IU football team might peak early or perhaps come down the other side of this hill they've been climbing, the Hoosiers simply keep rising. Saturday's 24-0 win at Michigan State was more dominating than the final score indicated.
I think we definitely expected this for sure. I mean, we just talked about it all week, just dominating this team and putting it on film, making plays, both offense and defense. I think defense did a great job just creating takeaways and making opportunities for our offense to score.
With the win over the Spartans, IU continues to add to a long list of historic marks this season. Their last win at Michigan State, that was all the way back in 2001. This marks their 3rd straight Big Ten road win. The last time they did that, 1982. Lee Corso was the head coach. Yes, that Lee Corso. More accurately, this Lee Corso. And IU is now 4-0 in the Big Ten. You have to go back to 1987 for the last Hoosiers football team to make that mark. The only one better, 1967. That team won its first 8 and eventually played in the Rose Bowl. But enough of the history lesson. Right now, the Hoosiers are riding a wave of positive energy that's been unmatched in Bloomington for a very long time.
You know, it doesn't matter what everybody says about us. We're going to keep doing us and keep keep executing each and every week and getting better every week. That's what's, exciting about this team. We're getting better each and every week. I mean, look at defense. They had a shutout today. I mean, offense, we played well, but we could have done better. That's what we're going to continue to work on next week.
It wasn't all smiles on Saturday. Thomas Allen was carted off the field after a serious leg injury in the third quarter. That's when Tom Allen, the coach, and Tom Allen, the dad, had a moment all in one.
He's going to be all right. He's a tough kid. I love him so much, but it could be pretty serious. So, it's hard. It's hard to see your son out there. And I knew, as tough as he is, I knew by how he was responding, it was serious. So it's hard to stand there and see that and then have to keep coaching, but that's what you got to do.
Now the next game is the biggest one so far, a trip to Columbus on Saturday. The Buckeyes are the standard bearer in the Big Ten. The Hoosiers will certainly find out if they are indeed for real.
It just shows how much work we put in. We put in so much work that, if we weren't doing this, we would feel like we're doing it for nothing. But it's just something that we stress all the time. Coach always believes in us. He puts that confidence in us every week.
And this one's still only the midpoint of the season. 4 more games await. Brad Brown, WRTV Sports.
A cold northwest wind in the morning, temperatures lower to middle 30s, then will slowly rise from there, but don't expect much of a warm-up. Those of you Logansport, Monticello, over to Marion will slowly reach 40 for the afternoon temperature, right in the heart of central Indiana, lower to middle 40s, and south of that about 47 or 48. Take your pick. We'll wait until Thursday. Mark and Amanda for temperatures in the 60s.
Thank you for making WRTV your choice for news.
It's been great having you along. Up next is World News Tonight with David Muir. Amanda and I will see you back here at 7 o'clock.